Tim began his broadcast career in October of 1975 at CFGP Radio in Grand Prairie, moved to CJME Regina in early '76, and then, let's hear it, CFRN folks, and then to CFRN Radio and TV in late 1976.
All right.
The dark side, we call you guys. His life in news began in September '79 when he was hired by ITV News as a news reporter and news reader. Then between 1980 and 1980 and 1992, Tim was assigned to be the intermission host of the midweek Oilers on ITV. Seth, you don't remember that, do you? I hate young people. Over the next 12 years, he moved into newsroom management as assignment editor, then assistant manager to executive producer, and finally named news director. From August 2001 to 2017, Tim was named Vice President and General Manager of Global Edmonton and Red Deer and the Prairie region. Now, I have to say that date of August 2001 really stuck in my mind. So I checked my calendar for that year, and I looked at a certain date in August 2001. And Tim, you'll remember this. This is the day, you bastard, you took my job.
I forgot, yeah. Sorry.
But I would like you to know that I'm over it now. I would like you to know that I'm over it now. From 2010 to 2017, under Shaw, then Corus ownerships, he held a myriad of senior positions, culminating in Tim's retirement in August 2017. Tim's community involvement is, again, I truly can't name all of them. But Tim is involved as a media advisor, volunteer fundraiser, and board member with several Edmonton agencies and organizations, including the ALS Society, a group I know that is very near and dear to Tim's heart. A newly minted board member with Covenant Health, and soon to be named honorary chief factor at Fort Edmonton.
All right.
Tell us what that means later. You have to be Catholic. Briefly, Tim was awarded the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal in 2012 for service, excellence, and community involvement. He also received the Kevin Carr Christian Leadership Award from Newman Theological College in 2006, and given a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Radio Television News Directors Association of Canada in 2011. Ladies and gentlemen, I would suggest to you that's quite the broadcast life. So without further delay, would you welcome my friend, Tim SPELLISCY.
Thanks, Greg, and thanks for that reveal on the latest position, honorary chief factor. I don't exactly know what that means, but you know, as my global friends know, when I left Global, they said I would continue to be a global ambassador, and I haven't figured out what that means yet either. So we're in good company. Tim Dancy was mentioning to me, "Are you a little nervous speaking here today?" I said, "Not really with all the people here, but I did get nervous when I found out Craig was going to be introducing me." Understandably so. But it's great to see so many former colleagues from a long ways back, and more recent colleagues here today. I'm shocked and surprised. Old childhood friends here, Josh Miller, Abe, John Gattens. I was out having a few drinks with John Gattens a few days ago in Vancouver. He didn't tell me he was going to be here today. Many of you might know John. He used to work on the radio scene here, and came all the way in just to listen to me. Really, John? Yeah. Must be raining in Vancouver. But a few weeks ago, I met with Marty and Luther and Wally Kirk, and Marty asked me about what my presentation was going to be like today, and I said, well, it's easy, Marty. I'm going to pull out my farewell speech from August 31st, and I'll just tweak it a little bit. And Marty said, well, there'll be some people there from Chorus and from Global, and that'll be kind of boring. And I said, don't worry, Marty, I'm sure they weren't paying attention. So. But I want to talk about a lucky life in broadcasting, being in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, connecting with the right people, and I want to also talk about the lessons learned. And the first lesson I learned before I got into business was to be a mentor, to help young people get into the business. I had all kinds of mentors, a whole list of mentors, people that got me into the business. But two broadcasting legends in Edmonton kind of stand out for me. Without these two people, I wouldn't have gotten into the business. One of them is here today, and that's Brian Hall. And the other is Bob McCord. So let me tell you about Brian. When I was in high school, I wanted to get into broadcasting, and somehow I connected with Brian. I don't know how I did it, Brian. I'm pretty sure it wasn't an email or a text, but I went down and met with Brian in the brand new CJC building at the time on 108th Street, and Brian and I yacked for a while, and he had me read into a tape recorder. He said, Ken, I think you can make it. You can do it. And he took me over to the newsroom and introduced me to Murray Blakely and said, hey, can this kid hang around on weekends? And Murray said, sure, and so I did. I hung around weekends. When I went to high school, and even I went up, I spent an afternoon, a Sunday afternoon in the broadcast booth at Clark Stadium with Brian before I took up north to Grand Prairie. So great support for Brian kind of got me going, and that was the first lesson, to be a mentor. When young people come to you and they want to get into the business, help them out. And the second lesson I learned was make sure that you follow up or reply to all the applications you receive. When somebody contacts you about a job, like I did with Mark Connolly all the time, it always was no, Mark, but I replied on it. But I learned that when I went to, after hanging around CJC, I went to Normal College in Calgary, but it didn't go very well the first year. And I came back, worked at a couple of jobs, and went to the U of A to keep my parents happy. While I was at the U of A, I started hanging around at 630 Ched with Bob McCord, and those were the days that Ched was a giant. There was Bob, Wes, and Al Anderson. In the newsroom, you know, there was Eddie Keane with the cigar going, and Randy Kilburn, and I'm pretty sure Stan and Bob were around there at that time. And Bob would let me come in once a week and just kind of watch him do his show, and I'd work away on his in a production studio, you know, putting together my own demo reels. And after about a year of that, and a year at the U of A, I kind of said to Bob, I think I got the bug, and I want to get into the business. And the first thing Bob said is, because he was a friend of my dad's, he said, your dad's going to kill me. And second, he said, okay, let's put together a tape. So of course Bob got in there and he juiced it all up and everything, and I sounded like Rob Christie. That's how good I sounded. And at least I thought so, Rob. But we sent out 53 reels, and I mean reels because in those days when you sent out a demo, it was on a reel-to-reel tape. We found a bunch of little tapes around Jen. We sent out 53. And out of those 53, you know how many replies I got? I got 2. One was from somebody in Lethbridge who said thanks but no thanks, and the other was from Jack Soares at CFGP in Grand Prairie, who said, you know, we just hired an all-night guy, so you could have fit the bill, but you sound like a news guy. You want to go up and do news? And I said, okay. And so my career began in Grand Prairie. But what I got out of that afterwards was how important it was to follow up with people and reply when they applied. When I retired a few months ago, I got messages from so many people, including a lot of people who worked with me and many who didn't but did apply and heard back from me. And that was the one message I got loud and strong was, thanks for replying and thanks for getting back to me. So I went up to Grand Prairie, lasted a little bit less than a year up there, but it was a lot of fun, Grand Prairie Radio, and it was a full-service station. I could tell you all kinds of stories about what we did up there, but it wouldn't be appropriate in this mixed crowd. But there was one thing that happened quite often, you know, in the morning, our morning guy, the late Peter Hall, Tim, you probably knew Peter, he'd read the obituaries. That's what you did in small-town radio, about 9:15. You'd read the obituaries every morning, and I'd always try to make Peter laugh when he was reading the obituaries. I'd go in there and make faces or drop my pants or something like that. One day I went in there and I lit the script on fire. It didn't make him laugh, but it made him go running out of the studio. We were off the air for probably 5 or 6 minutes, which could have been career-ending or tragic, but the real tragedy was nobody noticed. Didn't hear from any listeners, didn't hear from the managers, so we never did that again. I moved on from there to Regina, where I learned another lesson about holding people back, and I'll get to that. When I went to CGME Radio, well, the first thing I had to do was I had to change my name. I had to be Tim O'Brien. Bob can probably recall these days, and probably you do, Stan, where you did 2020 News. So it was Tim O'Brien, CGME 2020 News, it's 20 to 6. because the only time they let me read the news was 20 to 6 in the morning. Otherwise, I just wrote news all day. And when I got there, I was writing like, not all day, but 7 days a week. And I went to the boss after 2 or 3 weeks. I said, 7 days a week? He said, yeah, in Saskatchewan we can do that. As long as it's 44, 48 hours, it'll be fine. So, okay, that's great. I changed my name to Tim O'Brien. I read news once a day, and I'm working 7 days a week. This was a good career move. So 2 or 3 weeks into my experience in Regina, I decided I wanted to get back to Alberta, particularly back to Edmonton. I wanted to get home, and I started setting out all those reels and tapes again. And I heard back from a news director in Edmonton who said, we checked with your current boss. We heard some terrible things about you. We heard you're not very mature, and you're not very reliable, and blah, blah, blah. So, sorry, we're not really interested. So I went to the boss and said, what gives? And he said, well, Tim, you're not good enough to work in Edmonton. Be patient. Stay in Regina for a while. And I said, okay, fine. And a couple of days later, it was Sunday, I finished my shift, and I phoned him at home, and I said, my car's packed up, and I won't be in tomorrow. In fact, I'll never be back again. And his last line to me was, I'll see to it that you never work in broadcasting in Western Canada. I said, I'm okay with that, if that's what it takes. So I came back to Edmonton, kind of hung around, goofed around a little bit, and after a few weeks I had to get a job. So I went to CFRN, radio and television on the highway, and I'm pretty sure, I don't remember it exactly, I was going to check with Bruce if he was here today, but it was basically a cold call. So I went and I sat in the waiting room at CFRN for, I think it was several hours. Bruce finally came up and met me, Bruce Hogle I'm talking about, by the way, and took me in a little room and talked to me for about 5 minutes, because Bruce was always in a hurry, Bruce. And we recorded a little tape, and he said, okay, thanks, Ken, I'll talk to you later, bye. So I thought, well, this is the brush off. But Bruce called me back a couple of hours later and said, we've got a job for you. You're going to be the morning radio news guy on CFRN FM. The morning host was Michael Bell, which is a fantastic, my big break. So I started there. The good thing was I had this job. The bad thing was I had to be into work at about 5 o'clock in the morning, Bob. 5 in the morning, not that bad. Bob gets in way before that. And I had trouble getting up in the morning then. I was probably missing a newscast once or twice a week. 5 to 6 you got to call. You're on there in 5 minutes, then where the hell, kind of thing, and you rush in and stuff. So after 2 or 3 weeks and then 2 or 3 months of this, I thought I just couldn't get it together, Fred. I just couldn't get it together. And so Bruce called me in one day, and he said, we're going to change your role. I thought, oh, sure. He said, we're going to make you a TV news reporter. Your shift's going to start at 9. Fantastic. Things are working out. They're great. Well, that was Bruce, giving me a second chance, giving me one more opportunity. And actually, with Bruce, it was 2 chances and then 3 chances. And he was patient with me, and that was great. I got a lot of great opportunities over at CFRN. One that I remember distinctly was 1978. When I was 22 years old. Norm Williams, who was the anchor, had called in sick. Jim, you probably remember this. And so they got a hold of me out in the field. You got to come in and anchor tonight. So I kind of came in, and man, I was nervous. Sweat. So I went and I put all the old makeup on. You remember that old makeup? Just covered you so nothing could breathe. But I was sitting there in the set, and the sweat was still coming off my nose at 5 to 6. And Al McCann was sitting next to me and said, Timmy, what the hell's your problem? I said, Al, I'm scared to death. And he said, Timmy, don't screw up. This is your big chance. I know Al was trying to calm me down. Didn't work all that good. But I moved on in a year later to ITV, and while I was in the process of discussing things with Peter Tatton, I talked to Peter a couple of times about going over to work at ITV. But I was still very loyal to CFRN, but I just wanted to get across the river and try something new and work with Tim Dan, see what the heck. And at that time, an article appeared in the Edmonton Journal. These 2 young reporters had written this article, and they'd interviewed Peter over at ITV about all the great things ITV was doing and the great newscast and the great technological advancements and how CFRN was way behind the times. So here I was just days away from finalizing a decision to go work for ITV, but this letter really pissed me off, and I was a hothead, immature punk. So I wrote a letter to the editor of the Edmonton Journal, and the letter said, here's a quote, I have often seen the ITV news package become a technical nightmare. Perhaps viewers don't appreciate the gimmicks used by ITV. The ratings numbers speak for themselves. This was just before I went to work at ITV, so Peter Tatton tells me, what are you doing? I got to talk to Dr. Aller now. I don't know if this is going to, and I pretty much already, I think I'd already told Bruce I was leaving and the whole thing. But the good news was Dr. Aller was okay with it. Well, you probably knew about that way back then, and another second chance for me, thanks to Dr. Allard, one of the great people that I got to meet along the way. And there was all the famous people you got to meet. You think about them sometimes. There was the Queen and Prince Philip and Prince Charles that I got to meet covering things. Oh, I haven't yet scored an invite to the royal wedding, but I'm sure it's on the way. There was the Prime Ministers along the way, Mulroney and Clark, and Premiers Getty and Klein, Premier Lougheed, Rachel Notley and Grant Notley, Justin Trudeau and Pierre Trudeau. Justin Trudeau was at the station a couple of years ago, and I told all the staff at the time, Shannon will remember this, everybody stay upstairs, no selfies with the Prime Minister. And then I got about 15,000 selfies with the Prime Minister all over my Facebook page. So Peter and Shannon and everybody else will go, I'm really sorry about that, but like Craig, just get over it, okay? I did get a chance to interview Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau in 1978. I was working for CTV at the time, CFRN. Seconded to CTV National News, and the Prime Minister was in town for the Commonwealth Games, and Pope Paul VI passed away. So I was told to go to the Four Seasons Hotel, now the Sutton Place, and get an interview with the Prime Minister. It was for all the networks, English and French and everything, and I was the one guy there. So I was pretty pumped. I'm 22 years old, and I go down there to do the interview. And the Prime Minister meets me in the lobby with security guys. And first, Mr. Prime Minister, en français, in French, your reaction to the death of Paul VI. And he went on and on for a while, and then he paused. When he paused, I said, and now in English? And he said, I haven't finished the French yet. So I said, okay, well, I'll have a do-over here. Needless to say, I never interviewed the Prime Minister again. There's all the hockey players you met over the years, you know, Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Kevin Lowe. The old guys, though, I found them more interesting because I traveled with the current owners all the time. Got to meet Phil Esposito and Bobby Cole, who were interesting guys. Gordie Howe, Bobby Orr, who, if you ever thought you saw them on TV and they were nice guys, they're even nicer in real life. They're great guys. And then what surprised me all the time were the number of players that would smoke between periods. Phil LaPlagne, you probably remember this, especially guys in the Philadelphia Flyers and the Montreal Canadiens. So the very first time I'm interviewing Guy Lafleur, pretty excited, he walks into the studio with a cigarette going. Just tell me when to put it out. But we also, oh thanks, my sing. Whenever we went into LA, and the what they used to call the Not So Fabulous Forum, our producer John Shannon, you know, he tried to line up a star, what we thought was a star. One time he went in, it was Barbara Eden from My Dream Virginia, remember her? Next time he went in, it was Michael J. Fox, who came in after consuming about 15,000 beers for 2 periods straight. Very interesting interview. Kind of went off the rails. But, and then one time in Long Island, John lined up Martina Navratilova, and that was right around the time that Martina had said to a newspaper writer in New York, I think Wayne Gretzky and I should have a baby together. That baby would be a fantastic athlete. So of course, Mark, you can probably relate to this. John said, you have to ask that question. So I asked the question, and she gave a pretty good answer. And I'm not sure if she was serious, but it made for really interesting television. But all that time traveling with the Oilers, and Phil LaPlagne and Tim Dancy can tell you, it was so much fun that we shouldn't have got paid for those 12 years. We did. But it was the most fun I ever had in broadcasting. Not as rewarding as being in management, but it was a lot of fun. And we got trips all across Canada, the United States, and saw all these cities that we never normally see in New York and LA and Boston. And then in my news job, you know, we got to the Maritimes and Newfoundland a few times, Juneau, Alaska. We made a couple of trips to Dallas, Texas, and this was after the hockey. Before when I was doing hockey, the Stars were still in mini. And we went there to work with this research firm that we had down there. And one time I stayed an extra day and I got to go to the site where JFK was assassinated, to the Dewey Plaza and the Grassy Knoll and the Texas School Book Depository. I'm an Irish Catholic kid. My grandfather's an American. And it was a profound moment that really kind of changed me in a great deal. These were the benefits of these trips, though, that you got to revisit history. But also in the newsrooms, we got to witness history happening. And I can still remember, and I was there with Jim Napier, actually, in the CFRN newsroom. It's about 40 years ago or so, Jim. You had the old clickety-clack teletype machines that would go away and stuff. And all of a sudden, one afternoon, the machine just went bonkers, making all this noise. And we walked over there, Jim, and it said, Elvis Presley dead. And everybody was fine. A few years later, at ITV, just when I started at ITV, as a matter of fact, I was in doing that late-night talk show that we used to have on Mondays, called Nightline. It was a Monday night. I was in there with Doug Main. Doug Main and I were the only 2 guys in there at night, because that was it. Tim, you might have been around. No, you probably weren't around that night. No, Sarah was probably working, so. And Howard Cosell announced on Monday Night Football that John Lennon had been shot and killed. and Doug and I had to scramble and get something on the air. We were there for all of those events. I was in the newsroom on 9/11 when the first tower and then the second tower came down. You wonder what the hell's going on, and maybe this is the end of the world. You didn't really know. So when you go through all these events, you know, working in the media business becomes not just a part of your life, but it's your life. It's a 24/7 gig. And it makes it hard to leave, but it also makes leaving kind of essential at a certain time. You know, you love the business, but you have to go while you still love it. And my career is all about timing, and part of that was knowing exactly when's the right time to leave and let other people kind of move in with those new opportunities. It's kind of like that decision made by the Sedin twins, except I have a feeling their retirement will be much more comfortable than mine. But it'll be close. For those of you still in the business, still involved in the business, one important piece of advice: never say to a colleague, "We've always done it this way." I can assure you, and Wally and Luther will back me up, we never said that to Dr. Allard when he talked about the in-concert series, or bringing SCTV to Edmonton, or getting the orders on ITV. Now, I'm really grateful to work with Dr. Allard and Dr. Rice, with Bruce Hogle, Jim Edwards is here today, Peter Tadman, Doug Holtby, Wally, of course, Harold Rusin, and all those people who trusted me over the years. I'm not sure why they trusted me, but it's too late now. And of course, today there's some great challenges facing the broadcast business as some of us transition out of it here in Edmonton and across the country. The key, though, to the future of local TV and radio can be summed up with one word. That word is local, especially strong local news, and I'm kind of biased. Over the past decade, I've had many outsiders, even friends of mine, tell me proudly that they don't need local news. They get all their news from CNN and from Facebook and from the internet and stuff like that. Well, those people who are like that aren't really well informed, and frankly, even if they're friends of mine and members of my own family, they aren't that smart. You can look at what happened this last weekend, for example, out in Vancouver with John and some friends. And we got up, we'd heard about the Humboldt story on Friday. We got up Saturday, and a friend of mine was checking the CNN website to see what kind of update they had on what happened in Humboldt. There was nothing on the CNN website on Saturday morning. Something later on, but not Saturday morning. Social media can be a huge part of the solution for all of us going forward, but it's also a huge part of the problem. Getting it right, not first, should be important. That's hard to do in the age of Twitter and Facebook and all these websites. There was a Gordon Lightfoot story a few years ago where someone tweeted out that Gordon Lightfoot was dead, and several well-respected journalists, who shall not be named, retweeted that, went out there right away. Well, Gordon Lightfoot, of course, was still very much alive. He lost a lot of weight, kind of thing, but he's still alive today. A few weeks ago, I was checking Facebook one night that said Stephen Hawking had died, and I was going to repost it right away. Then I thought, you know, I'm going to check this out. You go to CNN website, BBC website, New York Times website, you see it's true, and then you repost it. But think ourselves how many times we retweet something that we don't check, or how many times we post something on Facebook, but you know if it's factual, or if it's come from a fake news site. Are we spreading fake news? And that's a big question, because the legit sites are backed by TV stations like Global and CTV, by radio stations like CHED and CBC, and by newspapers like the Edmonton Journal. We're monitored by the Canada Broadcast Standards Council, the CRTC, the RTDNA, which is our industry association, plus the people we work for, our managers and our owners. So we get it right. And when I say we get it right, I mean they get it right, because I'm retired now. I keep forgetting. We can also measure accurately how many people are watching our TV stations, listening to radio, or reading our newspapers. Websites can't do that accurate type of measurement because there's too many robots and too many click farms that are really a big business. So the numbers for many websites are total BS. And then there's fake news, and that's a huge problem. My former colleague and good friend Neil Fitzpatrick is here today. He's now teaching at McEwen University. And he recently published a paper, and fake news was part of the paper. I'm going to quote directly from Neil because I have to give him credit. Quote, "More and more these days there are examples of false information, retouched photographs, or edited video being released on social media. In many cases, the information goes viral in just days, even hours. When this happens, the competitive nature of journalism can lead to reporters and or their supervisors feeling pressured to report these viral items as news as soon as possible, before the other guy does, without firstly completely verifying the origins or the accuracy. News has always been highly competitive, but in recent years, this digitally enhanced pressure, coupled with reduced resources in newsrooms, means more and more organizations have fallen prey to a publish now and correct later style, a style that undermines the basic principles of facts and accuracy, and therefore affects the public's already tenuous trust of journalists." End of Neil's quote. And that's so true, sadly so true, but as far as the future is concerned, I want to be clear, I'm very, very optimistic. I think coming soon, we're going to see a time of great correction in the media business. Maybe I'm just hopelessly naive, because I also think that sometime we'll see spring in April in Edmonton. But I do think it's going to be okay, and I think the reputation of many so-called news websites not connected to the major news organizations, the reputation is not very good. And then, of course, there's the reputation of Facebook. Need I say more? Local radio and television, an essential service, should be treated that way. What happens when there's extreme weather? Calgary floods in 2013, Fort McMurray wildfires. How about what happened in Humboldt this last weekend? That's very difficult to cover with the resources that media organizations now have in the province of Saskatchewan. And they did a very, very good job. Not just the people in the resources in Saskatchewan, but right across the country. These are things that Netflix can't do and never will do. And unfortunately, we've had a few people in government who understand, we've had very few people in government, I should say. Unfortunately, we've had very few people in government who understand the business and what it means. And I don't care if you're talking about Stephen Harper or Justin Trudeau. When you let the CRTC decide that the Super Bowl can't be simulcast because a few people are complaining about seeing American commercials, you know that people in Ottawa just don't get it. And that decision cost CTV millions of dollars. I was working for the competitor at the time, but I still knew it was wrong. That cost millions of dollars, and that's millions of dollars that's taken away from local news. The industry isn't looking for handouts or tax breaks, but some logical decisions would be most welcome. And I want to add, these are just my own personal views. It's not the view or position of anyone I've ever worked for or worked with. So Sid knows if I still had a job, I'd be in a lot of trouble. Maybe, right, Sid? Sid's more like my colleague than my boss. But finally, as I put the water over there, it's really up to people like us to make sure that there is a good future for the business. Because if we lose local TV and radio, and local newspapers, just as important, if we lose local news, we lose culture, we lose identity, and we lose a piece of ourselves. And so, as I said, it's really up to us to make sure that it continues. People like us should be watching local news, CTV and local. We should be listening to Bruce Bowie and listening to Mark Conley in the morning. We should be reading the Journal and the Sun and telling others how important it is. And we should be proud of Edmonton's media organizations, and I know Marty leads that charge because, you know what, they're damn good. The industry is going through a lot of changes, but it's always been a business in change mode. There's nothing new there. And while I'm very confident of a good future for all of my broadcasting friends who are here today, I don't take anything for granted, and neither should you. As Joni Mitchell once said, you don't know what you got until it's gone. So be careful. Thank you very much.
Here.